In 1988, Paulo Coelho published a book called The Alchemist. Funny thing about this book is that for the first 6 months, it only sold 2 copies. Today, in 2020, the book has sold over 65 million copies. It is a world record holder for the most languages translated into for a living author. In some funny ways, the book has followed the same journey as the main character in this book, called Santiago. Chris, how did you find this book? Did you enjoy it?
I did. Absolutely, I did. It's such a well-written book, well illustrated. I'm not sure that this is the original look of the book, but it made it so much more intriguing to read. I was so excited to just hold this in my hands. And throughout the entire book, I don't know, it's not the author that inserted these illustrations, but they follow the story. So whenever I was thinking about Santiago with his sheep or something like that, there's an illustration of, showing Santiago walking around with his sheep or something. It would just bring me deeper into the story. Yes. It just helps you follow the story even more. It's such a wonderful book. I said this morning that this is a book that I would read to my children.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's such a great story.
Yeah.
So today what we'll try to do is we'll try to share our top 3 lessons from the book that Chris and I have identified as being, the main focus of the book. If you read this book, you'll probably get 3 different lessons. But from our conversations just before this podcast, they're the top 3.
And I think it's safe to say that we had to pick them.
Out of many lessons.
For sure.
So for those of you that don't know, the book follows a young shepherd called Santiago. He lives in the hills of Andalusia, which is in the north part of Spain, or south part of Spain.
Mm-hmm.
And Santiago has dreams of a treasure being buried beneath the pyramids or around
near the pyramids.
Near the pyramids. And he sort of feels silly about having this dream. He doesn't really understand why. And he's hesitant to go and to seek out that dream.
Mm-hmm.
But step by step, he starts his journey. And I think that's the first lesson of this book for us is don't be afraid to listen to your dreams and follow your heart.
And you not only that, but you never know where you're going to start or when your journey is actually starting. Because for Santiago, the story begins where he's traveling with his sheep to a city to go sell the wool.
Yeah.
And he's super excited to arrive there to meet the raven-haired girl. And that's how it starts off. And he meets this old gypsy woman that he talks to her about his dreams. And then she tells him, you should follow the dreams.
For 1/10 of your treasure.
Exactly. So the journey alone in this book is the treasure, and we're going to get into that really.
Yes.
What was the first lesson that you wrote down?
It was not being afraid to follow your dreams and listening to your heart, and start moving forward. Right. Mm-hmm. I think we've learned a lot about that in our respective careers.
Yes.
For myself, I can say that I've, opened and closed 14 different companies in my career.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about electronics, but I opened a computer repair shop.
Right.
And am I still in that field today? No. I rented out video games.
Yeah.
Am I still there? No. But all those things along the way helped me to get to where I am. Our podcasting.
Yeah.
Right? You and I started a podcast 3 years ago, and the only thing we knew about it is that
you need to start.
And
it was terrible.
Oh, if you listen to that first episode, it wasn't good. Yeah. But it led us to this today. And
that's my favorite one.
It is one of my favorites.
You see how clueless we were, yet we were doing something without really knowing what our travels would be like or what they would look like, but we knew we had to start going.
The lesson number 2 that you brought up earlier, it was the secret of happiness is to see all the marvels of the world,
right?
But without forgetting the drops of oil.
The drops of oil on your spoon. Yeah. Exactly. So Santiago meets Melchizedek. So the old king of Salem, which we Googled this morning to find out where was Salem in this, and then that's how we discovered that Melchizedek is actually
Jesus.
Jesus, exactly. So he meets the king of Salem, and the king of Salem, to teach Santiago a lesson of what is important in life, tells him, walk around the kingdom, take a look at what you see while walking around with a spoonful of oil. Now come back to me and tell me, what you noticed. So Santiago walks around, sees everything. He starts by walking around and only looking at the spoon to make sure that he doesn't drop the oil, comes back to the king, and the king says, well, what did you see? And then Santiago realizes he hasn't noticed anything besides the spoon filled with oil. So then the king of Salem, Melchizedek, tells him, walk the same trajectory, but notice your surroundings. So he comes back all excited. Oh my God, I saw like so many interesting things, this and that. But then he looks at the spoon and he dropped the oil. So the lesson in that was, here's the perfect line. Melchizedek says, the secret to happiness is to see all the marvels of the world and never to forget the drops of oil on the spoon. So that sums up pretty much the entire book right there.
I would say that, yes, for sure. So start out on your journey, and along the way, notice the good things.
Yeah.
Right? Without forgetting the goal.
Yeah.
So it's...
Yeah. There's many ways to interpret this.
I would say it like that.
Interpréter. So French. One of them is to never forget where you came from, and also never forget what you have.
Yes.
Because you always start off with your own riches that other people may be seeking. So that's the important lesson in there for sure.
And the third lesson that we identified is that the journey is just as important as the end result.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of this book, Santiago finally makes his way to the pyramids, and he notices that his treasure isn't there. He is beat up by some robbers. The gold gets stolen from him, the little bit of money he had. And this guy tells him about a dream he's had about, a church in Andalusian, having a treasure under it. So Santiago realizes that his treasure was at home all along.
Exactly.
So my question to you is, if I gave you, because when he got back to Spain, he did find that treasure full of gold. If I were to give you the choice to take all the life lessons that Santiago learned along his journey, or that pot of gold, either or, which one would you choose?
And this is something we discussed earlier. So if you take a closer look at the story, he does learn along the way on how to make more gold. Yeah. Right? So the alchemist teaches him how he creates gold out of any metals. Yeah. And then he also discovers on how to make more money by working smarter, like with the
crystal merchant.
The crystal merchant. So yeah, definitely the treasure in this story is
the journey,
his travels, what he learned. So if you had to pick one or the other, well, you'd want to pick the experiences first, for sure. It's kind of like teach a man to fish type of thing.
Yes, makes sense. I'd like to explore maybe an alternate ending for this book, and tell me what you think about it. Yeah. So Santiago makes his way to the pyramids. He gets beat up by the same burglars. The burglars tell them about the dream they had about treasures being buried beneath a church in Spain. Mm-hmm. He goes back to Spain, starts digging his hole. He hits a chest. He believes that that's his treasure, pulls it out of the rubble.
It's a coffin.
It's empty. There's nothing in there. He cries for a bit. He realizes, I've been on this journey for nothing. But then he starts thinking about, well, wait, the journey was the payoff here. Mm-hmm. And I never would have met Fatima.
Yeah.
His wife to be, we suppose, right?
Yeah.
He never would have met the crystal merchant. He never would have met the old wise king.
Exactly.
So the treasure is the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
So that would be my
It's something you can't buy, right?
Yeah. That would be my alternate ending for the book.
Yeah, it makes sense. And at the end, when he does open the treasure and finds the gold, he realizes that he could have found out where the treasure was buried or what it was about when he learned about the oil in the spoon. So that's when he realizes who the king of Salem actually is.
Yeah.
And he yells or speaks at the wind, and the wind answers like, You saw the pyramids, weren't they pretty? And then that's when he realizes, that's the treasure.
You made me go there for nothing.
But Santiago was lucky to have a bonus with gold, you know? So
it's a nice
bonus gift. It's a bit of money. Congratulations.
So tell me, how would you rate this book out of all the other ones that we've read?
It's a different type of book, but I would put it up there. I'll give it a 4.7 because this, like I said earlier, I would honestly read this book to my kids and see what they make of it. You know, whether you're a religious person or not, this book is for everyone. He doesn't talk about Jesus per se, but he talks about the King of Salem and how he's wise, and
you can replace that with any figure.
Exactly. It doesn't matter whether you're Jewish, whether you're Christian. It doesn't matter. This book is truly for everyone, and I would really like to share this with my kids someday. I know Rami read it. Rami has kids. Is this something that you would share with your kids? There's some great life lessons in there for sure.
Be a nice bedtime story.
That's what I'm thinking. You read it.
There's a lot of cliffhangers.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to know what happens. You know?
Exactly.
It's a little complicated. They should make a kid's version.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no chapters, right? It's only in 2 parts. Yeah. But there's always like a ending to a conversation that you can pause and get back to. But here's an alternate ending that I would like to propose. So Santiago digs up the chest at the end. So you read this book to your kids over a span of 1 week. And then when he opens the chest, it's the boogeyman! So,
that would ruin the whole book.
It'd be funny. Can you imagine? Ruin the book over a span of 1 week.
Traumatize the kids.
No, honestly, I know the guys just finished shooting a podcast for a very, very interesting book called Never Split the Difference. I'm kind of jealous I didn't read that one, but I'm also kind of sad that we didn't get to share this one with the other 2 guys.
With the boys, yeah.
And have a conversation with them. But get out there and buy this book. It's a gorgeous looking book. It's fun to read. Great story. And the audible version too is absolutely amazing.
It's very good.
Yeah.
And
besides the sun.
The sun, yeah.
When he reads the part of the sun, it reminded me
he was
of
running
the
out of
sun
voices.
from Teletubbies.
He was running out of voices.
Yeah.
So for my rating, I'm gonna rate it quite high. I had put down 4.9. Then you said 4.7. I changed it to 4.8, but no, I'll stick with my 4.9. Yeah. It's high. It's different than the self-help stuff that we read because it reads like a fiction novel, but it has a lot of lessons in here.
Yeah. And
I wouldn't mind reading more into this genre of books because I think it falls really well into the framework of our podcast. But one of my favorite books, and it's my second time through this book, and I gotta say that I learned so many more lessons reading it a second time, and I think I'll have to read it again in a few years.
I don't normally say this, but this is a book that I would read again because there's a lot of foreshadowing and there's a lot of examples that you could associate with different things. So like the robbers at the end that beat him up, like was that robber chasing his dreams and failed and he became bad in a way? Jealous because Santiago was digging in the same spot. So like there's a lot of different, like I would definitely like to see a movie as well. Is there an Alchemist movie?
No, I don't think so.
I'm just saying, like, I think it would make a really good movie.
It would be good.
But now I'm starting to feel like my 4.7 is low, but it's
quite
meant
high.
to be high. Anything over 4, really, go out and buy it. We're sometimes easy on the books, and sometimes we're a little bit harsher. But anything that's 4 or more, I think it's a definite.
It's a thumbs up. It's a recommendation.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anything else for this week?
No, that's pretty much it. We're gonna decide on the next book.
I believe we've already decided it's going to be a book by Hope, the rapper. Is that the name?
No, Prophet the Poet. Is that it? Prophet the Poet.
Anyways,
something like that. We'll get back. What's the title, Randy? It's in the not your typical book club conversation. I think it's Prophet the.
Let me pull it out since we've already talked about it here.
Prophet the Poet.
This is
things
no one else can teach us. Humble the Poet.
There you go. Things no one
Prophet the Poet is cool. Is a cooler name.
Yeah, things no one else can teach us by Humble the Poet. So we'll read that one and we'll talk about it.
I'll make
next
sure to find out more about him, because now I feel bad for butchering his name.
Hey man, that's what reading is about, discovering more about the author and the stories they have to tell. So thanks so much for tuning in, guys. As always, don't forget to like, share the content, and if you really want to do us a solid, there's two things that you could do. You could comment in the link in the YouTube channel below. We love it when our fans engage with us. If you have comments on the next book that you guys would like us to read. Another thing would be to go on iTunes, give us a 5-star rating, and also comment on your rating. That would help us tremendously. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next week. Ciao.